Nintendo, you let some wonderful franchises come into existence, and sometimes, occasionally, you watch them drop dead and move on like it's nothing. But out of any franchise, I think Chibi-Robo is one of the most mishandled of them all. The game was originally going to be published by Bandai, but it was developed by Skip. It was going to be a point-and-click adventure game where you have this perspective from higher up and you try to tell Chibi-Robo what to do. You're in the house of an inventor, cleaning up and interacting with his other robots and contraptions to solve little puzzles. But as the game went on, you were supposed to protect the home from burglars. And as you kept playing, Chibi-Robo would learn from the player's inputs. Bandai started losing interest in the project, but in 2003, Shigeru Miyamoto looked at this adorable little robot and said, "Come on guys, we gotta give this a shot." And the production of the game was overhauled completely. So from 2003 to 2005, they reworked the game until what it would eventually become, Chibi-Robo for the Nintendo GameCube. So in the story, Chibi-Robo is actually a mass-produced unit that people buy to help take care of their homes, and just to make them happy. In this game, we're bought by a man named George, as it's his daughter's birthday, and he wanted to get her something great. Turns out though that the family isn't doing financially well, and Helen, the mother, becomes upset with George for spending so much money on this little robot. She even makes him sleep out on the couch. But he tells Chibi-Robo that it's okay and he's hopefully gonna make things right with her. Later, Helen lets us know that she doesn't want to make Chibi-Robo feel unwanted and she really appreciates his help, but she's really worried about the future of the family because they're just doing that badly. Their daughter, Jenny, is a socially withdrawn 8-year-old kid who just pretends to be a frog to basically just escape from everything else around her, especially as their family isn't doing well and she takes it really hard. So most of her dialogue in the beginning just starts off as croaking sounds until she actually starts to open up. Really at its core, the game is about people having to open up to each other. It's about learning to communicate and express your feelings properly. And we also see this theme expressed in the story of these toys that come to life at night. It's some real Toy Story shit, I know, but it's great. There's a dog toy named Sophie who's in love with the superhero Drake Redcrest, but she just cannot for the life of her express it to him, and she's incredibly shy and withdrawn. But there's also a bunch of wacky and funny characters, like angry military eggs that have been attacked by the dog in the house, and you have a pirate who wishes to sail the seas again. And there's a bunch of animals around the house that you can also get to know. Of course, your trusty companion Television, who is a part of the package the family purchased to get Chibi-Robo himself. All kinds of colorful characters and plenty of little story arcs to discover as the game progresses. But for the most part, all you do is wander around and clean, talking to people and trying to make everyone happy. I love how every step Chibi-Robo takes plays a note, and the sound changes depending on what surface you're walking on. And when you clean, it also plays notes with a different instrument. Every action makes a wacky sound, and it all plays into the music in a fun way. I recommend a video by 8-Bit Music Theory if you want to know more about the fantastic soundtrack to this game. I love the core gameplay loop of this game, just getting ready every day to clean and explore the house, getting upgrades like a bigger battery life, etc. If you don't plug into a wall when your battery's low, you shut down. Man, this is such a fantastic and charming game with a great soundtrack. And for the most part, people agreed as it was scoring well in reviews, but it sold badly. According to the data I found, it didn't even crack 400,000 copies sold globally. There was also a Wii release in Japan only, but that didn't sell so well either. And why is that? Well, the game wasn't really advertised like at all. I guess just by looking at the cover, people weren't really convinced to buy it. I would have thought a Nintendo published game would try to get the word out there, but they really didn't. And a new IP in the later years of the GameCube didn't really interest people when the Wii was right around the corner. I mean, it was coming out the next year, and it had advertisements all over the place. There was no space to advertise Chibi-Robo, I guess, so it just kind of faded. I wish I could say they would improve on that front in the next game, but no. Chibi-Robo Park Patrol was released on the Nintendo DS in 2007, and I would consider this to be more of a spin-off than a sequel. It follows a new model of Chibi-Robo called a blooming Chibi-Robo, as he's dropped off at a park to help its flowers grow and to make people happy, and to improve the lives of the people of the town. While the game does feature some wacky characters, it doesn't have much of a story in the same sense that the previous games did. It's a lot more simple, which is fine. Eventually you get vehicles and upgrades to make your task of park maintenance a lot easier. And of course, being a DS game, there's many wacky touch-based controls for all the different tools at your disposal. While you walk with the D-pad, you use the stylus and the other hand to use all your tools. It works relatively well, and it's a totally decent game, but it did not sell well either. In the United States, it was actually a Walmart exclusive, and did not get much advertising embarrassing of any kind. So I'm not exactly surprised it didn't do so well either, but I also feel like making the second game of the series this different probably wasn't the best call, so they decided to make a proper follow-up to the original game, but they didn't release it outside of Japan, which is a huge shame. Okaeri Chibi-Robo Happy Richie Osoji, also known as Chibi-Robo Clean Sweep, released in 2009 for the DS. I had to play with an English translation patch, which I'm really thankful is a thing that even exists. It starts out with a Chibi-Robo wandering through a torn down house looking for an outlet before his power runs out. He shuts down and wakes up with Telly, who's now a computer for some reason, telling him that they've been purchased by a family and they have to help them out. And this family is even worse off than the last one. Their house is a mess, and Keith, the son, is surprised that his mom went out to buy a Chibi-Robo with how little money they have. They also say that they're going to save up for a color TV next and ask you to chip in. So we start cleaning as usual, which very much impresses Keith. He's so hyped up every time you do anything. There's also a really cute running gag where Telly has to type in really obvious things before he continues to talk. So like the original game, you explore the house and clean up, but this time you also have to watch out to not use all the power they have in the house because they only have so much they can use. But you can recharge the house by throwing garbage into these wacky trash bins. The game controls very differently from Park Patrol. Here you have to use a stylus to move around, and pressing on objects with the stylus to interact with them, or to climb them or move them or whatever. You pretty much exclusively use the stylus. You can use the L and R buttons for certain actions, but you can also choose to use the stylus and just clicking the L and R icons if you want. It controls pretty well for the most part, but there are some aspects of it I find clunky. Like if I'm in a drawer trying to push stuff around and I keep accidentally climbing out of it. It's annoying, but it's not the worst. They make it work pretty well. I'm just personally not the biggest fan of touch controls. I wish I could use the D-pad to walk as an option, but it only controls the camera in this game. And it's the same with the face buttons. I get it though, it's a DS title published by Nintendo, so the stylus is obviously going to be the focus. Anyways, this game is great. I do have a preference towards the original, but still it's a fantastic sequel. Trying to help out a family that's going through hard times and talking to new and wacky toys like this funny pig police officer guy. He has this gun that doesn't actually shoot anything, it just makes a loud sound. You could use it to scare mice away to get to new areas. And there's also a sad story relating to the father of the family that you uncover as you explore the game. It's some really good stuff and they do it well, just like the original title. And that's it. That's the last Chibi-Robo game ever released. I wish. 4 years later, we got a $10 digital-only eShop title on the 3DS called Chibi-Robo Photo Finder, and it's fine, I guess. It just wants you to take pictures of objects around the house. Honestly, I don't really get why it's a Chibi-Robo game. Telly is now a phone, by the way, so that's cool. All you do is find objects of certain shapes and take pictures for this artist dude, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing more to it. After this, we got Chibi-Robo Zip-Lash, a game that was said to be Chibi-Robo's last chance. The creators even urged people to buy it if they wanted more games in the series, and even included a really cool amiibo. Zip-Lash is nothing like any other game in the series. Basically, it's a really boring 2D platformer with a stupid wheel spinning minigame to choose what level you go to next, even though you have to play all levels, so what's the point of that? You travel the world, collect money, and have a giant robot fight against aliens. You know, normal stuff. There's just nothing about the game that feels like Chibi-Robo. I'm not sure why this was the game to determine the franchise's future, when it was barely anything like the franchise it's a part of. It's a game that was only co-developed by Spike, and it really didn't seem to have much involvement from the rest of the creators of the series. And of course, this game died. It's a mediocre platformer based on a fantastic but barely known series. Of course this game was dead on arrival. This game had no chance of succeeding. So instead of letting Chibi-Robo fade with its great DS games, it died a horrible and gruesome death on the 3DS. And now people are finally recognizing that the first games are really good. And you know what that means? Insane prices. I was lucky to get my GameCube copy for $170. I'm serious, that's lucky. Usually it's around $250 or above. And in Norway, you usually have to deal with insane import taxes too, so I got really lucky. And the DS games are over $50 each. It's a series that's just so hard to recommend to anyone because it's impossible to get a hold of. And even though the Japanese versions are cheaper as usual, the problem is that this series is impossible to play without understanding what people are saying to you, unless you have a guide. But I don't think it'd be much fun if you couldn't enjoy the goofy dialogue and the actual great story. The GameCube original and Clean Sweep absolutely absolutely deserve HD remasters or re-releases of any kind. To me, that's where Chibi-Robo is at its best, with the GameCube original being my favorite. If only Nintendo had tried a little harder to give this adorable little guy a fair shot, but they didn't. And now the creators of the series have confirmed that it's very unlikely there will ever be another Chibi-Robo game again. But hey, at least we can be happy that the series happened at all. It could have been dropped dead when Bandai lost interest in it. The only reason we ever got Chibi-Robo in the first place was because Shigeru Miyamoto just happened to look at the Robo and say, yep, that's a great character, we're doing this. So hey, I'm at least glad that Nintendo helped make the series come to life, even if they would also cause its eventual downfall. But I'm going to try to look on the positive side of this situation, because like the families in the game, Chibi-Robo has made me happy.